All right, so there is a big special election today in Tennessee. Tennessee, in this district, it is a ruby red district. It is Donald Trump won the district by plus 20 points. But this election is still polling very close. Right now, I believe the Republican is up a few points. But if you look at the Mondami in New York, like he was close, and then he ended up winning by like 10 points. So the fact that Republicans are having to put up money and to fight for seats that normally should be super safe seats it means a lot, and it means something to the discourse on politics right now. So right now the special district is between two newcomers. We have Matt Van Epps on the Republican side, who is endorsed by Donald Trump. He's a veteran. He's all the Republican boxes. The Democrat is Beyn. Now, she has never ran before. She has a lot of baggage. I guess she got a lot of bad tweets, talking a lot of shit about Tennessee and just a lot of bad stuff in general. So the Republicans are using that to throw shit against the wall against her. But inevitably, this election is about affordability, and what are the Republicans really saying and doing about affordability? Well, the guy at the top, Donald Trump, is saying that this affordability crisis is a hoax, that it's a Democrat hoax, and we're all making it up. So we're going to listen to the candidates. We're going to listen to what they have to say about what their policy is going to be and what they want to do moving forward. But if these candidates if they keep on saying they want tariffs and they're supporting everything Trump's doing, they're going to lose. Because right now, this administration is not helping anything with prices, and if anything, prices are getting worse. So this election, if it's close, it's bad for Republicans. If it's going to be close regardless. It already is close. So this is bad news for Republicans. Republicans should be winning the seat by 10, 20 points. So this election is going to be huge. We'll find out later tonight who it's going to be, but I haven't really heard of either of these people, so I just want to take a look and see what these guys got going on. So we're going to start with the Democrat, Afton Beyn. Both candidates did a little interview on a local interview podcast radio station, and they're both about 10 minutes long. Let's just see what we can learn about these two candidates.
I pride myself as a lifelong Girl Scout, so I've always been driven to community service, devoted to my community, making things better. And I decided to get involved as a community organizer, working for an organization called the Tennessee Justice Center in 2017, and launched my career as a healthcare advocate. And so my first organizing gig was standing outside the Houston County Hospital in Houston County, which is a public hospital, and rallying folks to raise awareness about the cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act in 2017. And so I have a track record raising awareness about healthcare cuts, how to make healthcare more affordable. And then I ran for the state legislature in 2023. So I'm a sitting state legislator. My district represents Nashville, including downtown Nashville, which is in the 7th Congressional District. So Broadway, you share a congressional district with Broadway and the Bachelorettes. Yeah. And in the legislature, I have had a track record of winning. I filed a lawsuit against the state of Tennessee to protect your First Amendment right to talk about certain issues, which is important for media, I imagine, and have a track record of bipartisanship. I filed a bill with the Republican.
So I'm learning everything about this candidate now. I've never heard of this woman before. So she was in the Tennessee legislature, and so she does have some experience with passing laws and working out the politics of government, which is helpful.
In the state house to remove the investigative processes for sexual harassment out of the legislature and into a third party within the attorney general's office. So I have a track record of winning, doing good things, and fighting for my community.
Awesome. All right, and let's talk a little bit about some of the issues in the race. First, on immigration. Congress's failure to act on immigration reform has pretty much come to a head, and we've seen that recently with the ICE raids and the protests against them. What are your priorities with immigration, and what do you think it might take to reach a compromise or some sort of a solution?
Yeah, I think both parties are culpable when it comes to resisting immigration reform because they both run on it, right? And so there's no incentive to change it. But we absolutely do need comprehensive immigration reform, and I don't believe that violent offenders should be on our streets. So number one. Two is we need a pathway to citizenship specifically for the Dreamers, right? These are kids that came over. Their parents are undocumented, but they are legal U.S. citizens. And we need a comprehensive fix to the problem, and which also includes 21st century border process. And so I think, the way that we deal with asylum seekers, the way that we deal with immigration right now has not met the times. And so we absolutely need to reform it to do so.
All right.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. That is the correct answer. Any other answer is wrong, and that person should not be elected to anything. Great answer.
What about on let's talk about healthcare? And you spoke on it a little bit there. What are your feelings on the current healthcare situation, and what do you think needs to be done to improve it?
So 2 weeks ago, I received an email from a lifelong Republican that lives in Clarksville, and he described his current situation, which is he pays around $50 for a plan on the Affordable Care Act, right? Marketplace. And if Congress does not act to renew these subsidies, his premium will go up to $500. These are working Tennesseans that leverage the marketplace to pay for healthcare for their families, and they won't be able to do it if these subsidies aren't renewed. So my first acute move would be to ensure that these subsidies are
Newsflash, guys. The subsidies are not going to be renewed. And this person that was paying $50 is now going to have to pay $500 a month. What kind of a number is that? That's a fake number. $500. No one can pay that.
Right? Because premiums are about to increase 40% across almost all healthcare plans in the state. And so we're about to see that too, is reversing cuts to TennCare through the big ugly bill, as I call it. You probably call it something else. But in July, there was this Congress passed a bill that decimated TennCare, our state Medicaid program. And it's going to hurt rural hospitals. It's going to hurt people in nursing homes, families with kids with severe disabilities. And so it'd be to reverse those cuts, to fix the spikes in the healthcare premiums, which we can shore up the marketplace to do that. And then to make sure that Medicaid and marketplace subsidies remain. And so, shoring up the issue, dealing with the problem, resolving the issue, and then making sure those changes are codified in perpetuity.
Yeah. Did you have any role in the when Tennessee rejected the Medicaid funding? What was your take on all of that?
Yeah.
As that developed?
So I moved back. I'm from East Tennessee, and I moved back to Tennessee after the end of 2016. And if you remember, Governor Haslam tried to pass Insure Tennessee. It was the spring of 2016. Unfortunately, it failed. And it's sad because we are leaving hundreds of millions of federal dollars on the table that we could use to ensure working Tennesseans. And so I have been part of I'd say the perennial struggle to expand Medicaid, first as a community organizer, which we tried in 2017, spring of 2017, and then every year, and then now as a state legislator. And it's just a really dumb move, right? Like, I think it's just a dumb resolution to not expand it because you don't want federal government intervention when you are a state that relies on a federal government quite heavily.
Okay. More locally here, as Interstate 24 has basically is clogged up a lot.
Basically, all the southern states voted against getting Medicaid funds back when Trump was president because they didn't want to help expand Obamacare and make it a thing. It wasn't, there's only reason. They just don't like Obamacare because Obamacare made it. And Tennessee is one of those states that has shitty healthcare because they didn't want Obamacare.
The time between Clarksville and Nashville. What would you do to ensure improvements to I-24 from the state line to Nashville? So
just some context for your listeners. So in the state legislature, I've learned, I sit on the Transportation Committee, which I've really loved. I've learned a lot. And so this year, what we have discovered, there's a committee in the Tennessee legislature called TASER, and it studies kind of across government sectors what is happening and then creates a report. TASER published a report showing that we have a $73 billion backlog in infrastructure needs. Almost $40 billion in highways alone, right? So this is a problem that not only is compounded by the federal government, but also at the state level. And as a legislator, I also deeply care about transportation. We have some of the worst potholes in the country. I'm sure you can attest to that. We have some of the worst congestion. The cost of the cost of car repairs due to the issues with our roads cost Tennessee and a Tennessee family over $900 a year. They've been able to quantify that. So people are wasting time and money on our highways, and we need to figure out a better solution. I did have one in the legislature, which is Pot for Potholes, which would have legalized the recreational sale of marijuana, and then that money would have gone to the General Highway Fund.
Pot for Potholes. I love it. I absolutely love it. That is genius. Just legalize it already. Good Lord.
Larry's Nursery, which is a small business in Montgomery County, actually changed their marquee to say legalize pothole repairs, which I thought was great. So shout out to Larry's Nursery, big fan. But as your next congresswoman, what I would seek to do is expand funding through the Federal Highway Administration's grant programs. I realized that we've left a lot of money on the table by not leveraging that funding. Additionally, what we could do is work with the Kentucky delegation with I-24 regional mobility and safety corridor projects. And this would be a multi-state collaboration between us and the federal delegation in Kentucky right across our border, supported by federal transportation earmarks. So it's identifying, landscape assessment as to what money is being left on the table, and then how can we work across state lines to ensure that we are bringing that funding home. And then finally, multimodal transportation. Light rail is really popular. It's a very popular idea. We just haven't had the political will to execute it. And so I would be an absolute supporter of ensuring a light rail from Clarksville to Nashville. I think that'd be really fun.
Light rails everywhere. Put them everywhere.
So that's it for the questions that I had. Is there any particular issue that you wanted to discuss or bring up with our audience?
Yeah, I think as I said in my beginning statement that we are dealing with a crisis of affordability. And I'm a millennial, I'm 35. I can't afford a house in Nashville where I live to buy a house. I can't afford to buy a house. I can't afford to start a family because of the cost of daycare and children.
True. My brother, a year younger than me, has 2 kids, and all he does is complain about the cost of healthcare. Maybe if you complain to Donald Trump, maybe Trump would help out with that healthcare a little bit. My girlfriend really wants to start a family, buy a house. We can't buy a house. I'm 40, she's 39. We both make good money. We have good savings. We live in San Diego. We have to buy $1 million house. We can't buy a house. No house. We're not going to have kids. Simple.
And so my generation has been left with an economy that inhibits us from reaching the American dream, from accessing opportunities. And that's a big problem. True. And we want people to stay in Tennessee. We want them to thrive. We want them to start families. We want them to buy houses. And so I guess my pitch to your listeners is that if you are not okay with the chaos at our federal government level, and if you are upset with the cost of living and the increased inflation, then I'm your candidate. I'm also a candidate that I was the only Democratic candidate out of the 4 of us that had never taken corporate PAC money, that was not bankrolled by special interests. And that's important to me because who are you fighting for? Are you fighting for the people of the 7th Congressional District? Or are you fighting for your donors? Are you fighting for the puppet masters that are behind you? So I'm running to make life more affordable for Tennesseans because Washington politicians have stopped doing their jobs. And I think it's time to fix it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for stepping up as a community leader
in
Tennessee and in Montgomery County.
Excellent
A reminder
interview.
That Election Day is December 2nd, and early voting begins on November 12th.
Super stoked on that for Tennessee. She's good. That was a good interview. If that was she was in my district, I would be probably out pounding doors for her. She was pretty good. So that was the interview with the Democrat. She's talking about, improving healthcare and addressing affordability. Didn't say the T word one time. Super proud of her for that. I would have had a hard time not at least saying fuck that guy at some point. But a good interview. So I agree with her on everything. Let's see what Matt Van Epps has got going on here. Sorry for the shoddy camera work right there. I'm still working on it.
West Point grad, went on to serve as an Apache attack helicopter pilot, and then served in the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, lived right here in Clarksville, and served with the 160th for 5 years. But service for me started, and learning about service started before that. My dad was an infantryman in Vietnam. He was drafted in 1965 and served as an infantryman in 1966 and 67. My brother is also a West Point grad. He's currently serving the active duty Army. And so we have a family of service, and that has really informed my background and how I operate. And I'm so proud of that, and so thankful for my family service and for all the veterans that are serving out there today. Mm-hmm. And, when we talk about qualifications and background, I do think it is the well-rounded background that makes me well-suited for this seat to be a leader and build teams, which is really important to me. A background in special operations, small business, state government.
I can't stress this enough. If you're running for local office like this, and you're the backbone of your campaign is I'm the better candidate because I was in the military. That's ridiculous. You being in the military has nothing to do with this, and it doesn't help you in any way.
In the National Guard today. And we took that background in the primary and we tried to build a really broad coalition. And I was honored to have over 40 local endorsements from county mayor to highway superintendent to everything in between. And that was really humbling. And then we built on that with endorsements from Congressman Mark Green, Jim Jordan, Mike Herodopoulos, Governor Lee, and then President Trump. And it was a really humbling outpouring of support. And I think it goes to the coalition that we tried to build.
Get that T-word in there.
And taking the well-rounded background in the coalition forward to go and lead and build teams in office. And I'm really excited to do that from day one.
Yeah. And you worked for a little while in the Lee administration, correct?
I did.
Tell us a little bit about your role there.
Sure. Yeah, I did. I served as Deputy Chief Operating Officer for 3 years. And in that role was supporting the 23 departments and agencies as an operational type of expert and working with those agencies to ensure they met their...
That sounds like a fake job. That sounds like a fake job.
Annual goal.
Sounds like he's a government bureaucrat.
And requirements and assigned to some different projects. One of the things I was most proud of in that time was building something called the Governor's Veteran Fellowship Program. And so built a coalition of folks inside and outside of state government. And it resulted in a 12-month fellowship program that brought folks here out of Fort Campbell started off in the 160th where I served at, and then 5th Special Forces Group, and most recently added the 101st Airborne Division. It brings those folks into a 12-month fellowship where they learn about all 23 departments and agencies, get really great training, and then ultimately end up as a leader after those 12 months in one of the agencies. Really proud of that. And then most recently served as Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of General Services, which was...
That sounds very like DEI-like. Like, because you were in the military, we're going to give you these special opportunities to be leader of a branch of our government. That sounds like DEI to me. I thought we were against that.
Just an amazing team. That's what I stepped down from to launch the campaign back in June. But kind of like federal GSA, very internally focused on the 22 other departments and agencies. We said it was the engine that drove state government. I like to say it was a helicopter engine as a helicopter pilot. But driving government efficiency, doing different teams with procurement, real estate, vehicles, document solutions, and several other things too. But loved being on that team and leading that team.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about some of the issues in the race.
Sure.
Congress's sort of historic failure to act on immigration reform seems to have come to a head, seen recently with ICE raids and the protests against them. What are your priorities when it comes to immigration, and what do you think it will take to reach some sort of compromise or solution?
Yeah, I think like many Americans, I believe in the American dream. And I think the American dream starts with law and order. And so I fully support the president in his initiatives and efforts around immigration, fully support ICE and their operations to keep Americans safe and secure. And so I fully support the operation to deport illegal aliens. Excuse me. And I think that is part of keeping our communities safe. And I believe in legal immigration and coming in the right way and being in line and going through the process as a country that supports law and order. That we've got to keep our borders secure, and we've got to work to execute those objectives that the president has outlined and fully support those.
Okay. On healthcare, are you satisfied with the current situation that we're in with healthcare? Do you see ways to improve the situation that a lot of Americans are facing?
Yeah, I think healthcare has got to be about patients.
Again, with the immigration stuff, he's just echoing Trump, and that's what this candidate is. He's a Trump candidate, and that's true with 99.9% of Republicans. They're just all whatever Donald Trump says he wants to do. That's what they're going to support too. There's no wondering what he's going to say. We already know what he's going to say. He's going to toe the Trump line through and through. He's not going to buck from that.
Families, I think first and
without that, he has zero chance of winning.
Foremost, I think that is so incredibly important. I think we've got to work really hard to decrease the cost of living, to include decreasing the cost of healthcare, prescription drug costs. I mean, you name it, we've got to work to do that. I think one of the things I've talked about quite a bit on the campaign trail is full transparency in both cost and quality. And I think when we can get to that point,
we already have that. I don't care about the transparency. That's a stupid talking point.
We let the private sector, we let the market really drive effects, and that's increased competition.
Private sector, healthcare, we already have that.
to drive down costs, increase quality and access. And a great example for the private sector being involved is right here in Clarksville with 2 new hospitals coming in. That is a market-driven decision, and when government gets out of the way, those hospitals are able to come in and will have the effect of increasing access. That competition.
I'm just going to go ahead and just say this. I would imagine that Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, has one of the worst health outcomes in the United States. Bottom 50%. Just throwing that out there. Just guessing.
Down cost, and I think will be really good for the community and the region as well.
Okay. And then more locally, if you talk about, Clarksville's growing.
So a solution for healthcare is privatization.
Fast. And I-24 has been sort of in need of some improvements all the way from the state line to Nashville.
Yeah.
Can you talk about like what you would do to make that happen, if you have thoughts on how to get more funding to Clarksville for projects like that?
We will fully fight for federal resources for I-24. Mm-hmm. That is incredibly important. As you mentioned, Clarksville is growing really fast. I think Montgomery County is the fastest growing county in the state. And that growth, we've got to ensure that I-24 has that we have the right resources to be able to expand I-24 through the Choice Lanes program that's going to start next year in 2026. But from mile marker 12 to mile marker 12, we need those federal resources to go from mile marker 12 to exit 40 in a fight for that. One of the things, I think a really strong relationship with Tennessee state government's important. One of the things that the General Assembly did was fund TDOT with the recurring dollars for the first time, and that's a step in the right direction to help get these road projects funded. But it's just the start, and we're going to have to do more. And I think that is fighting for the federal resources to be able to expand I-24 and really to have, the interesting thing about the General Assembly funding TDOT is that those recurring dollars were already built in. There's no new tax. It was a funding mechanism, I think, from a tire tax that was already in place, and it was just an innovative solution to redirect that. And I think it's another example of when we can bring the private sector in through public-private partnerships. We won't add burden to the taxpayer, and we can solve these really hard problems. And it's really important for Montgomery County, because of how fast it's growing, to get the resources so that it's the right growth, and we're able to balance all of that.
Okay. Well, those were the main questions I had. Was there any particular issue or anything else I didn't ask that you wanted to talk about?
Sure. I think I mentioned cost of living. I think that is really important. I think there's several things I think we have to do and think about as we approach cost of living and reducing inflation. Housing is one. I think energy is another. We've got to ensure that we fight to have robust energy sources. I'm a nuclear proponent, and I think as we do that, as we get more energy,
right now, that's basically the only solution that Republicans have. We got to lower the cost of energy. How? By building nuclear power plants. How long does it take to build a nuclear power plant? Without Googling it super quick, 5 to 10 years. Also, who wants a nuclear power plant in their backyard, in their community? Pretty much nobody. The only way that a nuclear power plant is going to be built is going to be against the wishes of 99% of communities out there.
Especially with AI and data centers becoming more prevalent, we need more data. I think we're 500 nuclear plants behind in the country, and we'll have the first small modular reactor in East Tennessee at the Clinch River site. 2032 is when that'll be online, and that'll serve as a blueprint both for future jobs. It'll serve
7 years. 7 years. That's your plan. We'll have some energy for you in 7 years. Let's shut down all the wind, all the water, everything, all the green stuff. Let's shut it all down, because in 7 years we'll have nuclear energy.
Print for how to finance those type of small modular reactors, and that'll have impacts across our district, and it's something that we should take a look at, and I will be paying very close attention to. The Navy has done really great work for a long time. As an Army guy, it's hard to talk about the Navy sometimes, but on Veterans Day, I think I can talk about it. But they've done a great job in their nuclear submarines and with nuclear power, where it is a small modular reactor. They don't have to refuel, and nobody gets sick. It's a safe technology, and so we've got to look a lot at that. As I mentioned, to reduce cost of living, healthcare. I think childcare is another component to that is really important, that we have to look at. Reducing red tape, reducing taxes, keeping taxes really low. And I think when we can approach each of those, we can really move the needle for cost of living, which is good for our families, it's good for our farmers, our small businesses, and that's what we'll fight for from day one.
Yeah. On the energy front, you spoke about the TVA. How do you feel about TVA's conversion of the coal-fired plant in Cumberland City, converting it to gas and also relying on some solar elements, or diversifying from coal into other energy sources?
Yeah, Chris, I think when I think about energy, I just mentioned nuclear, but it really is about unleashing all American energy and having those diverse, different energy sources. It takes a while to get nuclear online, and there's some safety protocols and things that have to get stepped through for that, especially in these new small modular reactors. But we can't wait for that. We've got to have reliable energy now that is both important for for the cost of the fuel pump, for reducing utility costs, but it's also a national security issue. And when we can do that, we can re-support our grid. We're able to reduce our reliance on foreign energy, and I think that is critically important.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Matt, and thank you for stepping up as a.
Well, I gotta say, I expected Matt Van Epps to be more MAGA, more Trumpy. This brand of Republican, I'm willing to work with. I can work with him. He doesn't sound overly like he's like the MAGA part of America. Like he towed the lines that he need to with Donald Trump being president and being the leader of the Republican Party. But he didn't really say anything like that crazy. Like the Republicans saying that we need to privatize healthcare that's not necessarily like a bad guy thing to say. That's just how some people see it. Like they just think that, that the private sector is better at doing things than other people. He kind of alluded to that he's okay with green energy, but he didn't actually say it because he can't. But he alluded to it. And a MAGA Republican would have been like, no windmills, killing the birds, can't have them. So a pretty center right kind of candidate. Kind of impressed by that. Still want him to lose, but still, Tennessee, you have a better Republican candidate today, and I'm pretty happy for you on that one. Elections today, we'll find out probably this evening between 8 and 10 p.m. I'm on the West Coast time. We'll find out who wins. It'll be interesting, and it'll be fun to talk about later on.